Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight we have a public hearing on variance 00221 submitted by Eric Peterson, 19136 Hempstone Avenue, Poolesville, Maryland. This variance is a request to construct a 12 by 16 accessory building that exceeds the maximum floor height by 42 square feet and the height of 14 feet 5 inches, which exceeds by a half a foot. This property is in the Poolesville 1/3 acre zone. This application is pursuant to the Poolesville zoning code, Appendix B, Section 10D3, to authorize a variance from Section 3 Development Standards Chart. This public hearing file contains the following exhibits: 1, application for variance; 2, letter from Clark Azar comments; 3, affidavit of posting; 4, photos of the sign posted; 5, Poolesville Planning Commission agenda mailed to owner, adjoining, and confronting property owners; 6, Poolesville Board of Zoning Appeals notice of public hearing mailed to owners, adjoining, and confronting property owners; 7, copy of the Frederick News Post with the notice of public hearing dated July 19th and July 26, 2021; 8, recommendations of the Poolesville Planning Commission dated July 14th, 2021; and 9, email from Stephen Schwann, property owner. No objections to the variance. All right, Mr. Peterson, would you like to come forth, and if you state your name and address for the, for the record?
Eric Peterson, please. Yeah.
My name's Eric Peterson at 19136 Hempstone Avenue.
Okay. Could you tell us about your request, please?
So I have a shed already and had problems with it since the time I got it. So we're going to replace it to fix those problems. We thought we'd go ahead and upgrade and get some room to store the kayaks in there that the squirrels are chewing up, and generator, snow blower, all things like that. And then my wife wanted a garden work area and such, and the shed is similar in size and even style to ones that the neighbors had, so we didn't perceive it as being any issue.
Now, have you purchased the shed already?
I've started the process, and they're waiting to find out about the variance.
All right, so it's not as if you
Correct.
you have it, actually.
Right.
Okay, all right, okay. Anything else that you wanted to add?
No.
Okay, any questions from any of the members?
I can.
Okay, RC.
What type of floor? You got a concrete pad already there?
So right
Or-
now, the current shed has a concrete pad, and it's 10, actually, it might be like closer to 11 by 13. So most of the new shed will be on concrete. The rest of it will just be on the standard. It has a steel frame floor in the flooring, and the concrete pad that's there is ground. It's level with the ground. It's not raised up.
Anyone else have any questions? Pat? Laura? Do you have any questions?
I don't have a question. Okay. Are there any conditions specific to the property that are relevant, where you would need something larger, or where the prior shed was not sufficient as related to the property?
Right. So we have 4 kayaks, and they don't fit in the current shed at all. With the shed that I'm trying to get, they'll actually hoist up into the loft and be able to be stored without taking storage space.
Okay. When you get a building permit for the new shed, will you have to do more of a concrete base, or because the steel frame, that's sufficient?
No, right. It has a steel frame. Looking around, quite a few buildings don't have concrete at all. They're on the steel beam frame. So actually, I'll have even stronger foundation. And I've toyed with the idea, and I would have to check putting the shed beside the concrete frame and then having a patio.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what would be involved in making that kind of a change.
Yeah.
Could be interior to the property, not closer to the fence.
Right, okay. I'm not sure everyone's gotten building permits the way they should, so you can't always count on what you see next door as being what.
I know, and I'm aware of that.
Yeah, okay.
Brent, did you have? Pat?
just to continue on with your question, so one of the things with a variance is that there's something peculiar or unique with your property that forces you to have to go outside of what the code is.
Right.
There's a lot of variances. I'm not a favor of variances, just for the sake of a variance. So I guess what I'm trying to understand, what is unique about your property that you have to, the property itself, not the fact that you've purchased something, you have a desire to store it in there. That's not a uniqueness. That's not a hardship. That's a self-imposed hardship.
Right.
But is there any uniqueness in the property itself that creates a hardship that, it's kind of tough to say that it makes you have to have a taller and larger shed than
Right.
what would otherwise be permitted?
Honestly, I don't know that there's anything that wouldn't just be contrived. The amount of storage in the house itself isn't sufficient to store the kayaks and things like that. So,
Did you ever think, I ride through the neighborhood all the time, ride a bike, and I see a house, they have a pool, and they have everything, and they have kayaks, and they have them on kayak racks
right.
on the
And
side of
I
the
had
ship.
tried that, and currently they're stored outside. And the last time we went to use them, they'll have very deep gouges from squirrels chewing on them. So I was hoping if I could store them inside, the investment in not only the kayaks, but we both have health issues as we're getting older and different things. And we depend on kayaking for quite a bit of exercise. So, yeah, it would be sad to go out there and find that they're no longer seaworthy.
Okay, that's all.
One more thing, Pilar. Did you consider a detached garage perhaps instead of a shed?
I wasn't aware. So first off, by detached garage, you mean like a pagoda, like without the four walls? It needs to be-
I mean, it could be an enclosed, it's just a structure, right? But it's more of a garage than I don't know if it has to be site-built or not, what the building code is for that. But a detached garage would perhaps give you more options than a variance, because as Pat noted, there's certain requirements, and as the board, we're obligated to follow what the zoning ordinance says, right? And I completely appreciate wanting to store things, and I have kayaks that are under our back deck. I'm gonna have to go see if the squirrels have gotten to them. And I fully appreciate having a neat yard, and, I looked at your property and it looks really nice. I mean, I completely appreciate where you're coming from with this, but from the zoning ordinance perspective, right, I mean, we look at four things. Is it contrary to the public interest? And no, I don't think so, because it's a half a foot higher, right? It's negligible, it's in your backyard. But are there conditions peculiar to the property? I struggle with that one.
Right.
Enforcement of the provisions of the zoning ordinance will result in hardship and injustice. I understand that it's a personal inconvenience perhaps, but to say it's, that you can't store everything you'd like to, I'm not sure that results in an injustice. And then the hardship can be alleviated without affecting the general purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance. And that's where I struggle too. I mean, it's a small exception, and you're still getting permits, which again is excellent, right, what you should do. It doesn't really have impact to the greater community, but it does start to carve away at the ordinance, and that's when, right, if we get another request and we need to be consistent, right, for a zoning, a cell tower or something, and right, all the little exceptions, then we struggle with, well, what did we do in the past? What precedent have we set? So with a detached garage, then that just gives you more options for space and size, and that we don't run into some of these challenges here.
So quite a bit outside of my area of expertise.
Yeah.
What would be the difference between a detached garage and a shed? I mean, what would constitute, well, this is a garage and this is a shed?
Right.
This has a roll-up door wide enough to drive a small vehicle through. I mean, what criteria changes one from one to the
I
other?
hear you. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I can try to help out. When we were prepping for the case, John brought this to my attention, that under our zoning code, if you call something a detached garage, you can get up to 600 square feet without any type of variance at all. But if you go and say, well, let's find out what garage means, we understand what detached means, there is no definition in the zoning code for garage. So, we felt that, well, that's a problem, but a shed versus a garage, and maybe it's in the construction, maybe it's in the building permit. I still think the height issue here would be a variance, regardless of what you call it, because I think it's square footage for a garage and not height regulated. So you still may need that type of variance.
Maximum for a garage is 17 feet.
Oh,
17, but
17.
14.
5.
so yeah, so the question that we came up with, of course, your case is already underway, is it simply a nomenclature to take advantage of the loose language in the code? The code may need to be clarified or fixed, but you hate to see how citizens are going to come in and say, I don't know, it's a shed to me because I'm putting stuff in it, not a
Right.
car in it. And if we had a code that says a garage has to be built with a roll-up door, 4 walls, has to have a driveway to it or something, then maybe you'd say, well, I'm not building a garage, I'm building a shed out back.
Right.
All that lawyer talk is the fact that our code is vague. And so while it isn't up to us to say, hey, rename your application garage instead of shed, because I don't know what unintended consequences that has down the road,
Right.
it certainly would alleviate the need for a variance.
Is that something where we could recommend or could provide the option to table it while that was explored?
You certainly could, but we wanted to at least get some discussion and maybe a tentative decision so that in the event it is not, then we wouldn't have to reconvene another hearing because there isn't really more evidence.
The only one that
You can have the order, there you go.
you're good.
I think it would, I think just to label it a garage wouldn't go. It really has to meet whatever, if our code doesn't have it, you would have to defer to some other definition of what constitutes a garage. You can't just take, what is a garage? A garage it can accommodate vehicles. It's meant for vehicles. Most aren't used for vehicles, but it would have to be a garage in that sense. I don't think we could just flip and call a shed a garage. That I think, even if our code doesn't have it somewhere, we'd have to defer to a definition.
I think that was kind of where I'm heading. We would want to find a definition of garage, and I would imagine, since we know that most of your houses have attached garages, and we know what they are kind of looking like, a detached garage would be similar, even if we found it under the building code or deferred to Montgomery County or something like that. But it's beyond us to advise and say, hey, why don't you get a roll-up door and put some concrete in front of it, and then you're good to go.
Right.
Since it's sitting in front of you already. So options would be you make the decision tonight, and if you feel that your decision is going to be counter to the applicant's interest, you could stay the decision until we figure something out. But the issue that I have is that once this decision is made, you're precluded from asking it again for 18 months. Nobody wants that just because it's technicality type
Right.
of thing.
Right.
Any discussion about whether we should delay the decision or move forward?
Well, just for discussion purposes, I'm definitely not in favor of continuing to give variance for things, first off. I think a variance should be unique to a situation. I don't think I see it here, but on the same token, and the detriment to the community if we isolate your lot and say it really isn't, but my concern is as we keep approving these variances, overall they become a detriment. But that was my viewpoint when I looked at this and I got it. And I drove over there, and site specific, it's, your yard kind of slopes back, there's mature trees, you've got a fence around it. Will it be offensive? Will it be an eyesore? I don't think it will. Again, my concern is to set a precedent to yet approve another variance. The only thing, if another property came in equally, same sort of lot, except no woods and it was wide open and it sat up, I'd have to deny that one. because I would think it would be offensive. This one, I don't feel it is, so I'm torn, because I don't like approving yet another variance, but it just, this one
Right.
doesn't seem like it's going to create an issue. Again, I don't think he's hit on all the 4 counts, but in reading the planning board and your comments that you don't have to hit on all, if some of them outweigh others, will this cause an issue in the neighborhood? I don't think it would. I think it's hidden. So if that's the uniqueness to this one versus one that's, in an open farm field, it's, so those are just, I'm struggling with those 2 things in my brain, so.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with Pat, is, part of me wants to say, we've got to put an end to just rubber stamping variances. And of course, do we call it a shed or do we call it a garage? And, it's,
In that
everything
regard,
is unique.
I would rely on you to tell me what modifications I would need to make this considered a garage, legitimately, not
Right.
just
Yeah,
contriving.
And that would be
But-
more the, our engineer. Go ahead.
We'd be calling it a garage just because of the floor space
Well,
issue.
not tonight, but I meant coming.
The point I guess I'm trying to, general point, not with this case, is that somebody in his situation could put a garage there
Right.
that would be bigger than what he's requesting.
Right.
Without asking you to do anything.
Right, no, I.
Even if he
hear you.
parks his car and he makes it a legitimate garage. But if it's not a garage, you have to have a permission to do
Right.
something that's smaller.
Right.
And so if you're driving by the neighborhood,
You're going to see it, right.
and that's what I guess I'm telling you is the code purpose.
Right.
Are we really, it's not your job, but is the code really carrying out that if somebody can do something
Right.
bigger in the
Right.
same spot without permission?
Yeah, that to me boils down to we're looking at 6 extra inches of height.
Right.
Which, as you point out, is not an issue in the neighborhood.
It's half a foot. Half a
Yeah,
foot
6 inches.
higher.
6 inches.
In height for a shed.
For the detached garage, it could be 3 feet more, but I'm only 6 inches
Yeah.
above
Yeah,
for the
That's where I
variance.
was going.
yeah.
You're right.
Jay, to clarify, for these factors, I thought it was an and, that you needed all of them. I mean, granted, you can weigh some over the other to make your decision, but shouldn't there be something for each one?
You need to have evidence presented so that at least you try to touch on each one, but you certainly are going to weigh all of those. So for example, I could say it's a hardship, and that's why you have to give me the variance to do whatever I want to do. But it may be detrimental to the community, and that may be a huge one because it may be on a corner and it may be very visible. So even if the hardship is a whole lot, the detriment to the community would be too much, and you'd say no. And so that's what I was trying to get across the planning commission is that, you need to have evidence in each one, but you all are going to weigh what it is. And that's why a lot of times we are doing the hardship is kind of little and the detriment's kind of little, so it really doesn't make a difference. But at least evidence is presented, some type of evidence is presented. And I believe, and I don't have it in front of me, but I thought the acting town manager said something in that category during the minutes of his planning commission meeting. And I don't remember what, but there was some comment about the lot. And that's because he was asked, but I'm not sure it made it to the minutes, but.
The only thing I thought, that they were talking about the lot and asking questions about the grade of the lot and all that, but I don't think there was anything specific to it in the meetings that said there was anything, because they were trying to, prompt him, that, is there something? And there isn't, you can't, I appreciate that he isn't trying to make something when there isn't. It's a desire, and that's the difficulty. I don't see that there's a hardship at all, other than a self-imposed hardship, and that's not.
Houses have put a detached garage and they are higher than 14 feet, So that's, because I remember that there was a comment there, so. So how would the board like to proceed?
Well, I don't think there's an option of, let's just call it a garage. You know, I don't believe that that's going down dangerous territory. And to call it a garage, I think for me then to now say, okay, I'm going to look at it as a garage, I'm going to be looking for more things. It's going to cost you more, and it's not really what you want. So, you know, I have to agree that if it was a garage, it can be bigger, so it doesn't make sense. The ordinance is wrong in that respect, and something needs to be defined there, because it doesn't make sense. I don't know. I'm torn. I don't want to be the one to make the motion.
Well, it sounds as if that we are actually ready to make a vote. Am I?
Oh, come on, because I signed in too, but you haven't
What-
called me.
what- Hold on.
Okay,
You-
I'm Mrs. Peterson. And I do have
You're going to have
things
to
to say
state your
about
name
this.
and also,
I came and signed up too as well, so. I don't know what kind of money most people make, but we cannot afford to have our kayaks stolen. And we had them before we moved into the property, and there was no way to secure them anywhere on this property. And in my opinion, my financial standing, that is a hardship. There's also some other concerns, but I'm not interested in sharing my PHI with the town of Poolesville on YouTube. So I don't know if you need that kind of information privately. I'm willing to offer that, but
no, it's part of
I'm
your-
not going to discuss it here.
Well, your testimony is important. And also, could you just state your name for the record?
Oh, sure. I'm Lisa Peterson.
Okay, thank you. Anything else that you wanted to add?
So I don't know if I'm asking, is that not a consideration? Like, is that fall in the realm of the hardship that you're discussing? Because we're not really clear what type of hardship is legitimate in this, as justification or substantiating.
Just for clarification, PHI, are you saying public health information?
Yes.
Is it, okay,
Yeah.
because you said that, and it kind of is like, what is she referring to, so.
Oh,
Jay, can you help clarify? The hardship is related to the property, correct? We're not looking for personal hardship.
Right, under our zoning ordinance, the hardship is related to the configuration or the conditions on your property. So if you had a corner lot that was on both sides and you wouldn't have a rear yard or something like that to put it in, then they would say, well, because your lot's a corner lot and it's different than other lots, and maybe it's a corner lot that's different than all corner lots. That's what they're trying to say, is that's the hardship, not necessarily the proposed use of it. And that's what they judge. There's different criteria, 4 of them, you've heard them mentioned. So they look at when you're varying the conditions, you're looking at it as how you're going to use the building. They're looking at it how the building is going to be placed, regardless of what it's used for. And so that's why they look at
Oh, gotcha.
that
Okay.
type of thing. So, and I think everyone here, at least we're all struggling to try to figure out what can check the box for hardship so that they can say, yeah, it's not going to affect the neighborhood, it's not going to be noticeable, those types of things. But if it's just because you want a bigger shed, I'm hearing that the board's like, I'm not willing to make the motion on that. Now, we may have other people that might, but that's the issue. So you don't need to share that type of stuff. And if you did, it would become part of the record, and so don't, I guess. Right?
So I guess I still don't quite understand, is the vulnerability to your property being stolen and there's nowhere on the property to secure it, and that's what we're trying to do?
I mean, I think that could be a valid thing that they could
Okay.
consider, whether it is, I mean, you've said it and you've stated it, whether it
Right.
creates what, but these are normally conditions of the lot. So I'm trying to think of an example of what we've come up with one before where there was condition of the lot, meaning, let's say that your lot's shaped and it has a very, very steep slope. So therefore, you need to put the shed over on the side yard, and there's a 5-foot setback, and you wouldn't be able to meet that. You
Or
would-
forest conservation.
Right, so you would be able to tell them, my lot has forest on it and a deep slope, so I can't put it where everybody else would. Therefore, I need to put it here, and that requires you to change the rules.
Okay, okay.
That touches on something, because that is what our code asks for. There would never be a unique situation that would be a hardship, that would require someone to build something bigger. And that's the struggle here, because there could be a hardship personally that's creating that situation, but because our code isn't worded that way, we're looking for the hardship, what's unique about the property that is making you have to build something bigger than, so that's the struggle. It doesn't work for our code. And so it kind of just becomes a judgmental call on our part that, do we feel like let's just go ahead and approve something? Because while the hardship can be personal, it's just not the way our code is written. And so how do you justify going taller or bigger based upon that? All I can say is, if I were going to say there's something peculiar or unique about the property, it slopes a little bit and there's mature trees, so it hides the variance. And that's what I would be basing a decision upon. And that isn't checking all the boxes. That's saying, I don't think it's that significant. The heartburn is, I don't want the next neighbor coming in and asking for the same thing, because I believe in the code. I believe in the rules. There's a reason for them. And that's where I struggle, so.
Well, as we've already discussed, the code is pretty vague on whether you call it an apple or an orange. And so to me, it boils down to he's asking for a waiver on the height, and that sounds inconsequential. So, yeah, I understand that we don't want to be throwing out variances right and left, but I honestly don't think we do all the time. This doesn't come up all the time. This seems to have highlighted something that needs to be corrected in the code at some point, but I don't think we should put that on his back. If you're ready, I would move to approve the variance.
Do I have a second? No. Okay, no second, all right. So Jay, a motion, no second.
That motion fails.
Okay, all right. Do I have any other motions?
I would like to consider tabling to give you some options to explore, such that we don't deny and have you not be able to consider anything else for 18 months with this application. I think this has raised some issues that are worth looking into.
Yeah, I have a question. I mean, we're talking 6 inches. Can you go back to where you're purchasing the shed and say, can you just lower it 6 inches?
Well, that's the 42 square feet
Oh.
too, right?
Square footage of the.
That's what I
Okay.
was
Okay.
about to ask the same question.
Yeah.
Can you,
So it does
Let me-
come in an 8-foot or a 7-foot, and the 7-foot would be adequate, but I didn't think the 6 inches was the showstopper.
Yeah.
It's square footage.
Yeah,
It's-
because it's 6 feet longer
okay.
than the current shed.
And just to make sure I understand, this is all surrounding kayaks, basically?
No, riding lawnmower, generator, snow blower, garden workstation.
And you have nowhere else to store that stuff? Because to me, the issue is, you want this building bigger so you can put the kayaks in, so the squirrels don't. But if you can if you go smaller, you can reconfigure what you're storing. Everything may not need to be stored as you want it, if the kayaks are the primary reason.
They're a large part of it, but not the only reason. You see on Town of Poolesville page, there's quite frequently people breaking into cars and rifling through looking for money. We'd like to have our vehicles in the garage, and I have camera equipment that sometimes is left in the car. I'd prefer not to have that in the driveway. So the kayaks are just part of it, and
Okay.
illustrative of they're being damaged by being outside.
Sure.
Do you
And
mind
then-
if I kind of answer that as well? Okay. Our
Yes, go ahead.
garage, oh, okay, sorry. Our garage isn't very tall. It doesn't have like, area above the cars to store anything. Basically, you can pull the car in and then the, doors of the garage, they roll up and they're just high enough above the car that you couldn't like hang something down or shelves or something like that. So there's not, it's a smallish garage.
So the other thing, I would look to you for guidance on if a shed's not gonna cut it, what, without just calling it a garage, what would actually make it be considered a garage? And from, if I'm understanding correctly, that isn't defined yet, or there's not an actual answer?
That's
Short, I mean, and I'm not
Yeah.
gonna game the system, I'm not gonna play games or disrespect, say, boom, no, it's a garage, even though that would get me out of here tonight.
Just to help you out a little bit, maybe, if your shed was 12 by 9 narrow.
The kayaks are 9 feet 6 inches, so,
Okay, but 12 foot long by 9 feet wide,
yeah,
you fall under the 150 square feet.
right, but,
All right, I'm just pointing that out.
and the height wouldn't be a problem? Honestly-
If the height was below the 14 feet, you're okay.
Yeah. I
Just
don't
a
know.
thought.
I know that would be the easy way out, but honestly, I've got $11,000 on the line here with this shed, and I already built a shed. It's just, it had some damage when I got it, and so they sent me new parts. I think they sent me the wrong parts, so it's been nothing but stress and grief with it. But if I'm gonna spend $11,000, it's not, I'd like to get something that solves some problems, not just replace the current one.
That's fine.
But I appreciate that.
I just pointed it out.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Is this shed already built?
No,
Oh,
I've ordered it, a company called Tough Shed.
Right.
Through Home Depot, and which is where I saw the demo model. So I was able to actually walk inside and say, yes, this would solve all my problems. And walked into a smaller one and said, this isn't worth the money of replacing the existing one.
okay.
So the shed has been ordered, but I could cancel the order, but there would be fees for canceling it, but, you know, if I can't build the shed, that's no point.
So, we were along the lines of tabling this, which isn't the outcome you wanted for tonight, but if there was an opportunity to do that, we could certainly work with the applicant to see what details we can come up with that might fit within our code. We can talk to the commissioners as well to say, what do they want to do? Maybe they want to change the code. I mean, we can do what we can, but our hands are tied too as well. But I hate to just say, no, on your way and whatever, if there seems to be some way that we can work this out. And, you know, the hardship, if there was a hardship, is pretty much on the town side now because we don't have the personnel in the town hall to do this. That's why this case makes it to you without any vetting, because there is no zoning administrator or manager that would do the vetting. So maybe that's something we can work on as well.
Yeah. Well, I'm inclined to make a motion to stay the application and encourage the applicant and the town to see what they can do to come to a resolution where the town looks at the detached garage provisions in the ordinance and tries to reconcile what seems to be unfair in this situation. Because it's,
I second.
All in favor? Yeah, so we're gonna stay. This will give you the opportunity. Give you the opportunity in the town, the opportunity to get this straightened out, so we're all good, so.
So, do you have any idea what kind of time frame? Because we're starting to move into the winter for building, if it does go through.
I think before you leave tonight, John is the town engineer, and the three of us will exchange information.
Okay,
I mean, I'd like to get this done in the next week or so.
okay, okay.
Once we come up with something, then we'll see what to tell you.
Okay,
You know,
okay,
So maybe we can come up with something.
all right,
that will
yeah.
satisfy.
Okay, all right, appreciate it.
Can I ask another question, or is that,
No,
it's
it's fine.
relative? Okay.
No.
So I've been in the military 29 years. I totally understand not wanting to rubber stamp, or, not wanting to say yes every time to variances. But I ask that you think, going forward, don't make your rubber stamp say no either. Question things, let people question things that don't make sense, like you did tonight. I appreciate that, because there are different situations to be considered, and I think maybe those will start to come to light as people start to use the process better and more often the way they're supposed to, if they feel like they can get a fair consideration for their requests. So I appreciate that. that you
I think
didn't
it's
do that
important
either.
too that we raise issues for the ordinance, because until things are pressure tested, sometimes it looks great on paper.
Right.
And then we have a situation and we just think this doesn't seem fair, right? But it's our town.
Right.
Let's make the ordinance work
Right.
for us.
Right.
And if not, at least get us an explanation so we can understand it.
And we understand the concept of,
Mhm.
you're protecting us from our neighbors as well as the neighbors from us. I don't know if it's appropriate, but neighbors around us have the same shit. They didn't go through the process, and I'm being punished for going through the process. So, I would like to find a way to resolve this without feeling like, I'm the one person in this community who can't do what everybody else is doing.
Right, because you raised it forward and did the right
Because I
thing.
tried to do it
No,
honestly and correctly.
I hear you. Thank you.
Okay, all right. The meeting's adjourned at, looks like it's about 23 minutes to 8. Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.